Hi, Marie, House Whisperer. Come and take a walk with me and I will tell you about being a house whisperer, the areas we might cover and how it might benefit you. 18 or so months ago, I had no earthly idea that house healing, or house clearing as it's also called, existed. I'm very well qualified in the therapeutic arena with diplomas in hypnotherapy, counselling, past life with spirit releasing and soul retrieval, and a lot of energy qualifications which, if I listed them, would probably mean nothing to you. So at that time I was with my group of dowsers and we were singing the ley lines. Oh, there he is amongst the clouds. And this is something that happens every year. I haven't the faintest idea why. But the Michael and Mary lines twine their way across southern England, and on a particular day, at a particular time, various groups along the line sing to that particular ley line. Now, think of this ley line as a big tube with maybe 50% below the ground and 50% above. And what we do before we start singing the ley line, we measure its diameter. And after a few minutes of singing, which is really a celebration, a thanks, a connection with that energy, the ley line dowses to be considerably larger. So yes, ley lines, holy lines, earth energy lines, and an awful lot of other lines are taken into consideration when we are house healing, because some of them can be detrimental to the people who live above them. Whilst singing the ley lines, I'm a geomancer, and a geomancer is a person who works with earth energies, who heals earth energies, and that is all part of being a house healer. She was describing a book, Heal Your Home by Adrian Incledon Weber, and I knew instantly that this was a book I quite simply had to buy. When I received the book some days later and read it, I found that there were so many things that I'd never considered. I had no knowledge of, and some things that were really quite weird. In fact, the curse of the necklace from the Egyptian mummy's tomb is not really so much paranormal experience. There is an element of truth in there, and this element of truth can be found in Chinese proverbs or sayings that if a grumpy old man has worn a coat and when he dies gives that coat to someone else, then that someone else may become grumpy. Conversely, if a ring that has been worn with love and admiration is given upon death to someone else, then that person will experience that love and respect and admiration and everything that is wonderful. So, geomancy, earth energies, elementals, all these energies have been recognized since the beginning of time. And that is, yes, one of the areas that we check. Now, I think for myself, I lived, and still do live, in the 36th address of my life. And I call this house, because I would never ever think of calling it a home, a grotty place to live. But when I checked out other areas where I might live, I found that my grotty little house had advantages that these other places quite simply did not. But even so, I didn't like being in my grotty little house. It just wasn't somewhere I wanted to be until I healed it. And now I'm very happy to call it home, even though it doesn't have a swimming pool and helipad. And you will find a lot of the problems that were hidden in my house to be in my podcast, Marine House Whisperer, in the 3rd episode, which covers an evening with Bridget Jones. And no, I'm not Bridget Jones, but the house she was in was basically mine before it was healed. So, your house, has it been on the market for ages and ages and quite simply won't sell, even though the price has been reduced dramatically and improvements have been made? Have you ever gone into a house when house hunting to find that while it ticked all the boxes, as soon as you went through the front door you thought, no, not this house? And yet another, you knew that this was your home even though you hadn't seen all the rooms. Or perhaps you live in a house that has a cold room or a cold area, somewhere where you quite simply don't feel comfortable, where the people who used to visit you regularly now come less and less frequently, hardly at all, and really don't stay very long. Maybe perhaps this is the time to consider having your home healed. Maybe your dogs and children don't like playing out in their beautiful new garden. Lots and lots of different things to be considered, because as a house whisperer I tune in to these energies, and to do this I use my dowsing rods. And once I've tuned in to the energies and found out just how detrimental they are and maybe why they are detrimental, the reasons behind this energy, then I can heal it. So why am I taking you a walk through a housing estate that was built in the 1980s? Probably to a plan where all the houses looked the same. But as you can see, over the years they've developed an identity. They've been changed to satisfy and suit the people who live in them. And of course, you know perfectly well that the people who live in these houses, whether it's a single person or a family, have their own problems and concerns with life. And they deal with all life's pleasures and traumas from the very first day of life to the very last. And all these energies stay. Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be changed. So a violent argument or deep sorrow will stay. It will sink into the carpet, the floor, the walls, the furniture. It'll stay there until that area, like a sponge, has absorbed as much as it possibly can, and then that energy starts seeping out. And it's not magic unless it's positive energy, but I'm only looking for detrimental energy. And so a couple may buy a house because at that point in time they're, like myself, not being consciously aware of the negative energies. But those negative energies start seeping out, and they start becoming physically or emotionally depleted. And so this is something we look for. So as a geomancer would start, this is not the first on my list of checking, but working from the house bottom to the rooftops, would start by looking at the earth energy lines, the underground streams or water tables, and find if they hold any detrimental energy. We'd then look at the foundations of the building itself, and the things inside the building to see if they're holding detrimental energy. Just think, if your house was built upon the foundations of an ancient stone circle, a psychiatric hospital, a workplace, a prison, there are going to be an awful lot of detrimental energies hanging around there that need to be healed. And that is what we do. Also in your gardens you have the nature spirits called elementals. Some people can see these or feel these or recognize these when they're dowsing, for example. And so in the next few videos I spend time on the different areas that, as a house whisperer, I will look at and heal to your advantage. So to find out maybe a little more, you might like to check out my Facebook page, Marine House Whisperer, and like, comment, ask questions, be part of the dialogue, because we all live on this earth together. So, see you there. Thanks for sharing my walk.